tear your soul apart.
Horror as a genre has always been captivating, whether it be Pennywise from It or The Shining. Since the 20th century, the genre has taken hold in the cinematic landscape of Britain and produced some masterpieces that continue to scare audiences even today. One of the biggest influences on British horror cinema, according to some sources at least, is the Gothic literature of the 19th century. Yes, you are right, fans, if you are thinking of Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein or William Godwin's Caleb Williams. So, let's then see the notable horror movies that have come from Britain and the influences that shaped these pieces. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
What the hell's going on here?
Some kind of animal, sir.
An American Werewolf in London, 1981. The plot of this comedy horror is as simple as it can be when it comes to werewolf movies. Jack and David are American graduates who are attacked by a werewolf. While Jack dies in the attack, David survives. He swears a rabid dog or wolf attacked the two of them, but also has seen the dead body of a naked man where the animal was shot by concerned locals in an effort to help the two men. Jack's undead specter keeps following David around in his dreams, urging him to kill himself before he hurts innocents, except David refuses to believe him, until he transforms into a werewolf and kills a few people, that is. Then he tries to, trigger warning, end his life, but stops before he can do it. Jack turns up with the undead victims of David's attack, and they all urge him to complete the act of killing himself, as it would free them from being undead and allow their souls to pass. David turns into a werewolf in London and is shot dead by the police when he lunges at his girlfriend Alice without more than a brief recognition of her. Does this movie have Gothic horror elements that are so characteristic of British horror cinema? Well, while the werewolf has existed since medieval times, many scholars firmly place it as an element of Gothic horror, and the same can be said for ghosts or the undead. The idea of psychological distress is also very prevalent in Gothic works, so yes, it can be said that this movie has some roots in Gothic horror tropes. Yet, we know, fans, that you aren't here for a treatise on Gothic literature in British cinema. You want to know whether this is a movie worth watching. And while the only way to truly decide that is by watching the piece, here's what other fans had to say. One fan called the movie postmodern, saying it knows the werewolf genre and is aware of that. They also said that the running joke of the movie is having an American student suddenly confront horror movie cliches. While they appreciate the makeup and special effects that the movie brought into the scene alongside its contemporary The Howling, and they do consider the movie innovative, they feel it lacks a wow factor and isn't the classic many make it out to be. What are your thoughts, viewers? Have you seen The American Werewolf in London? Let us know in the comments while we share more British horror movies with you.
We have such sights to show you.
Hellraiser, 1987. This is a story where a couple moves into a house that is haunted. Not by a ghost, though, no. It is the haunt of the man's brother and the wife's former lover, who has now been transformed into an ugly beast thanks to a puzzle box. Unlike Disney, this man doesn't need a true love's kiss, but instead requires human sacrifices to be a real person again. The Gothic tropes in this supernatural horror piece are clearly evident, with a reference to Frankenstein's monster. But the movie has more to offer with the character of Kitty and an unnamed wily merchant. For you see, dear viewers, Kitty, who is the daughter of the couple, sees her mother take a man to her Uncle Frank. She escapes Frank and opens the puzzle box, but instead of going with the other dimensional people in the box, who are looking for carnal experiences, she tells them Frank escaped their grip. The beings agree to let her go and recapture Frank if he confesses to escaping them. Kitty returns home and Frank has killed her father and assumed his identity. Yet Kitty gets him to confess his actions, and after Frank accidentally kills Julia without remorse, he tries to attack Kitty, but the beings find and take him. When they try to take Kitty too, she reverses the motion on the puzzle box used to summon them, thus banishing them. Then she throws it into the fire. But the story doesn't end. No, fans. An otherworldly creature finds and gives the box to the same merchant who sold it to Frank so that he can trap another customer. Perhaps best to watch this piece with your parents around if you aren't a legal adult yet. But what do fans have to say about this horror movie? Well, Hellraiser was one heck of a success, becoming a cult hit, and Clive Barker gaining appreciation from the likes of Stephen King, and fans have called it groundbreaking with increasingly poor sequels. Next up on our list of scares, we have The Company of Wolves, 1984. This is a gothic fantasy film that seems to take inspiration from the Red Riding story, in our opinion. The story is simple. A young girl, Rosaline, is dreaming that she lives in a fairy tale forest in the 18th or 19th century with her family. After the death of her sister, she travels to her grandmother's house and ignores her advice to never trust a man whose eyebrows meet. Instead, she gets into a contest with the huntsman, who has this look, to see who can reach Rosaline's grandmother's cottage fastest. The hunter reaches first and transforms into a werewolf and kills the grandmother. When Rosaline arrives, there is a fight where she injures the huntsman, who then transforms into a wolf. Spurred by her desire for the man and pity for the creature, Rosaline decides to stay with it, ultimately turning into a wolf herself and escaping with the huntsman to join a pack. The dream breaks into the real world of the movie when a wolf leaps at the sleeping girl with a pack gathered outside her home. The tale is meant to be cautionary towards young women to make them aware of the dangers of blindly trusting strangers. Rosaline, of course, is the protagonist, and she is trusting and naive as well as rebellious in ignoring advice from her elders like most young people. While some fans stick to the above interpretation of the story, others see the tenderness of the wolf to the girl as a reconciliation between male and female sexuality, saying that while other movies would have killed the wolf, Carter chooses a different path. An interesting fact is that this movie has framed narratives, which means there are stories within the story, making it even more engaging to some viewers. This movie still has a hold on modern viewers, as reviews show. Despite critics saying that the execution of the movie fumbles, some fans have said they fell in love with the movie, showing its significance as a piece of media and as British horror cinema. Split Second, 1992. This is set in a dystopian world where climate change has wreaked havoc. Veteran and jaded homicide detective Harley Stone is tearing through London to find the person who killed his partner Foster. Stone's new partner, Durkin, realizes that Stone escaped the monster previously and now is taunting Stone, trying to lure him to his death. They also realize the creature they are seeking might not be human, and while they do defeat one monster, the ending of the movie hints at the presence of others. Fans have called Durkin a by-the-books character who was assigned to Stone to report any signs of mental breakdown, while Stone is a burnt-out detective. The movie, fans say, has a good detective plot, but critics widely derided it. This small-budget film, which was once the hope of science fiction horror in British cinema, had its share of troubles such as directional issues towards the end, which likely impacted the film, making it more suitable for home video rather than the theater. Fans have also complained about the lack of consistency with the monster's powers and whether it is an alien or the devil, as well as saying that they dislike the alien-like ending the movie's last showdown had. Yet, they also have said they enjoyed the characters' dynamics, especially the new take this movie brings to buddy cop cinema. Others have compared it to Blade Runner and called it extremely entertaining, showing that appreciation for this movie usually depends on the individual's taste, and you must give it a watch rather than form opinions based on reviews. The same can be said for Hardware, 1990. This movie's horror is even more rooted in science fiction than Split Second, and it can be petrifying and triggering. In Hardware, a couple retrieves a robot's head in a post-nuclear war wasteland-style future. What they don't know, though, and this would have been critical info for dear fans, is that the robot they just found, its directive was to kill humans. While one of the couple, Mo, uses the robot head they found and bought as part of a sculpture, this Mark 13 rebuilds itself and turns Jill and Mo's girlfriend's apartment into a death trap. Yes, I can see the horror of accidentally gifting your partner a killing machine that has its eyes set on them. This movie is a cyberpunk horror, of course, which makes us wonder what the gothic elements that British horror cinema is known for are. Well, this movie's plot was apparently stolen from Shock, according to a lawsuit, and it is from an era of British movies that have evolved beyond the gothic. Despite those facts, some fans still can't help but appreciate the world building and cinematic textures of the movie. Others have said that the movie relies on its postmodernistic style to make the slim plot interesting and still falls flat, despite being graphic at some points. Some think the music is oddly placed, while others think the score is kick-ass. On one hand, some fans call it the only movie they ever walked out of. Others say it is the most 90s movie they have ever seen and call it a true representation of the times. What modern viewers find baffling is the lack of internet in the movie, despite the surveillance tech available and the radiation waste and pollution on every scrap of land, screaming we are watching a sci-fi version of a dystopia. As we said, this movie can either be amazing or awful, depending on your taste in films. Kinda like the Marvels, or even the next work on our list.
You had your chance to leave, David.
Haunted, 1995. Okay, this is one scary movie. While British horror movie in the 1990s was not as gothic-dominated as it once had been, this movie certainly fits the bill. David is a professor of parapsychology, exposing seances and trying to disprove the existence of ghosts until he is called by a Miss Webb who claims to be experiencing paranormal activities. There he meets and falls in love with Christina and makes love with her, only to find out later that she is dead and her ghost will do anything to keep him from escaping her, to the point of locking him in a house and setting it on fire. Juliet, David's twin sister, who had died when the two were 11, saves David, and he returns home thinking he is free, until the audience sees Christina in the shadows watching David meet his assistant Kate. Christina is, of course, one of the major characters who had died when her nanny locked her and her brothers in a room and set fire to it, possibly because their mother killed herself after seeing the three siblings engaged in incest. She is meant to be cunning and evil, though fans recognize her efforts at appearing charming and flirty when she is trying to get David to fall for her. Fans think Haunted is an adaptation by James Herbert that works because it lacks his characteristic parade of sadism and instead leans on the British ghost story angle. Fans have expressed a lot of love for this work with its great performances and score in their reviews. Yet, like all works, it is up to the individual taste at the end of the day. Razor Blade Smile, 1998. This is the story of a vampire hitwoman named Lilith Silver who is trying to end the Illuminati, the head of which is her ex-lover and sire. To stop her, said sire puts the police on her trail, who are desperate to end her carnage. And yes, the name Lilith comes from biblical sources, yet this feel holds none of the gravitas, leaning towards chic representation of vampireness and horror, while also effortlessly borrowing from other movies without making any effort to hide or change it. All this has disappointed and captivated fans, but one fan has said that the revelation at the end of the movie spoiled the work for them. What revelation? Well, I suppose you have to watch the movie to find out, dear fans. But here are some more reviews of the work to help you make the decision of whether that is a mystery worth solving. While fans have enjoyed the gore and violence, many found it mild and some even called the work brainless. Yet, Others found that the ending made the whole movie satisfactory and could even be seen as a commentary on how those who have power view others as pawns. That got too realistic for horror, or did it? You know what? Let us just take a look at another movie. Extro, 1982. This is a science fiction horror movie that closely resembles Alien in some respects. The story starts with father-son duo Sam and Tony when Sam is abducted by aliens only to return years later claiming he has no memory of what has happened. This continues until Tony sees Sam eat the eggs of his pet snake. Do not ask us why the kid had a pet snake, and Sam in turn drinks Tony's blood. After this, Tony discovers he has paranormal powers, which he uses to kill people until Sam transforms into an alien and takes Tony with him to the alien ship. Oh, and they leave behind alien eggs, which kill Rachel, Tony's mother. There is also an instance where after making love, Sam bleeds all over Rachel, which contributes to the gore of the film and shows the kind of horror it is going for. Let us not forget that this is a movie from an era where British horror was leaving behind Gothic elements. Modern fans have called the film a cheap E.T. knockoff, which doesn't truly make sense and is instead a series of absurd images, including a woman giving birth to a fully grown Sam near the start of the work. Others have called it a fever dream of surreal imagery, yet others have called it revolting, which again, a few consider an aspect of body horror films. The next movie on our list is Funnyman, 1994. Max Taylor wins a haunted house in a poker game and ends up losing his family to a humorous fourth-wall-breaking demons action. The demon is the Funnyman. The situation gets both funnier and deadlier when Ma's brother arrives with a bunch of hitchhikers, among whom is a voodoo woman whose card tells her that the Funnyman has awoken. The movie has interesting characters such as, of course, the Funnyman himself, who is a murdering demon, yet seems to titillate some of the audience with his wordplay. Fans have also called it a bizarre horror movie that they would have been sad to miss out on. While some called it the best film ever, others think that it is a gross exaggeration as the term unfunny man would be more suitable for the movie, especially for those who aren't familiar with a British sense of humor. What do you think, fans? Have you seen The Funny Man yet? Or perhaps you have seen the next work on our list. Lighthouse, 1999. Remember escape rooms? This movie is just one giant escape room for its characters where after a shipwreck, the crew and prisoners on a prison ship find out they are stranded with a psychotic killer. Will they escape, or will he add their severed heads to his collection? Directed by Simon Hunter, the three main characters are Dr. Leo Rook, the psychotic killer, Dr. Christy McLeod, a mental health professional haunted by his murder of her mother when Christy was but a child, and Spader, an epileptic man who was wrongly accused of murder. Yet fans, despite wanting to like the movie, say it fell short of its promise as none of the mystery surrounding these characters was ever resolved in the claustrophobic setting of the story. Some fans call this a fictional version of events of a lighthouse where everyone disappeared without a trace, while others say it relies on the suspension of disbelief. Some have called it predictable and entertaining as well. What do you think, fans? Does this movie sound predictable? What about the others on this list? Are there any that left an impression? Let us know in the comments while we give you Marvelous Verdict. Horror is a diverse genre, ranging from Lovecraftian cosmic horror to body gore to many other forms. While modern cinema has the advantage of advanced CGI to create alien creatures and scares, there was a time when horror movies delivered with much less tech. These British horror films show us a small part of the history of British cinema, especially how Gothic influence and science fiction, as well as aesthetics, have played important parts in the horror genre, and how the monsters, which the Monsters universe is championing, is not new, and it is in fact always evergreen. And if you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.